Like many contributors on YouTube, I find inspiration on other channels. After watching a video converting a Hot Wheels car for tabletop game Gaslands Refueled, I had to find out more about this game. Flipping through the pages made me nostalgic for when I was a kid watching Mad Max, The Road Warrior, and that third movie.
Welcome to Thunderdome, bitch.
With the recent films being such box office hits, I was riding the wave of resurgence of this game, originally released in 2017. I was flooded with ideas for new teams, new sponsors. I couldn't wait to get started, and everywhere I went, I was hunting for cars. I plan to do more videos for Gaslands, showing my progress on both the models and the learning of the game. So stay tuned and... Episode 62, Gaslands Refueled, Team Grindhouse Part 2, Meet Zoe. Last time it was Hellenor's spotlight, this week it's shining on Zoe, the other member of Team Grindhouse. While Hellenor is the definition of a speed demon, Zoe is fast, but more about the stunt driving skills. Stay tuned to the end of the episode to see how Team Grindhouse did in our first championship race. Zoe began as a Hot Wheels Ravenger ST, but soon morphed into a deadly machine of the wastelands. For the body, I went with Acrylic dark blue for the base color. Having no specific vehicle to base it on, I decided that a dark blue would offset the yellow of the Hellenor nicely. Like I said, just because the cars clash in combat doesn't mean their colors should. Once the solid base coat was down and dry, I went back over the body with Acryl's dark navy blue. With the dark blue of the base coat, I only needed a few coats to get the tone I was looking for. Since I had already painted the interior with Acryl steel, I used Acryl's bold pyro red to paint the harness straps, as I wanted them to resemble a current racing gear. Deciding the interior needed more color, I decided to match the steering wheel to the straps and used more bold pyro red and added some highlights. Moving back to the body, I used the bold pyro red for the brake lights. Not that Zoe would ever use her brakes. Going back to the dark navy blue, I went over the parts of the chassis that were actually parts of the main body so both halves would line up smoothly. While I was touching up the dark navy blue, I saw that a lot of spots on the chassis where the layers of pro-acryl steel were not as thick enough and too much primer was showing through. I took some time to go back over these spots so the coverage was even and smooth. Even though Zoe is more the trick driver, she does like going fast, so it was time to work on the NOS canisters. Since they were on the same team, it only made sense to use the same colors as Hellenor, so I grabbed Army Painter, Fanatic, Crystal Blue, and Lava Orange. Since the engine block was going on last, I painted it up separately. For the main engine, I used Pro-Acryl Dark Silver, and for the hood, I used more Pro-Acryl Steel. For the heavy machine gun, I used more dark silver, keeping the overall black look, while adding some metallic shine. Once again, I was attaching the gun after assembly, so I painted it separately. Now, the front grille of the Ravenger ST is very unique and looked more like headlights than a front grille. So using a base of white ink previously applied to the grille, I went back over it with layers of Army Painter's Lens Flare Glow. With the body back on the chassis, I went around the cutouts for the grille with more Lens Flare Glow, adding to that glow effect. Satisfied with the glow, I worked on the passenger side armor plate with some more Pro Acryl steel. I was planning to move on to the edge highlights and the usual battle damage when I decided to get some crazy notion to do some freehand. Using not very steady hands, I decided to try and replicate the iconic skull and lightning on the hood of the Death-Proof Nova, almost as if parts of that car may have been repurposed by Zoe herself. After frustrating myself with the freehand work, it was time to add the usual battle damage with some more Pro Acryl steel and a tiny brush. I also went back over some of the rough edges of the body with steel, adding to the rawness of the build. With the body sufficiently roughed up, I turned my attention to the rims using Pro Acryl Magnesium, giving them almost a copper finish. Lastly, it was time to finish the details on the heavy machine gun, so I used Pro Acryl Rich Gold for the bullet casings and copper for the bullets. Following all this up with a nice Army Painter dark tone wash, and Zoe is ready for the track. Race day is here, and we chose to go with a teardrop-shaped death match track. I've been adding to my Gaslands goodies with Battle Mat from FAT Mats and some printed terrain I found on myminifactory.com. Hellenor got pole position, and with her hot start perk, she was able to start in 5th gear, allowing me to use the long template from the starting line. Spookies and Scream bolted from the starting gate, painting a bullseye on Hellenor's bumper, but didn't have the speed to catch her right away. Zoe decided to use some fancy moves to maneuver around everyone as she headed for the first gate, and Truckee Cheese brought up the rear and decided to hang back to see what happens. Hellenor, seeing she didn't have room to use the long template again, chose the swerve template instead and tried to get away from that crazy clown head. Unfortunately, this didn't work out so well, and before she knew it, Spookies and Scream was slamming her in the back. Zoe tried to get out of the way using the swerve template as well, while Truckee Cheese tries to go around the carnage on the other side. Finally seeing a clear path, Hellenor launched herself with a long template, trying to get away from Spooky's and Scream's damaging ram. Speed was her only defense, as the ice cream truck couldn't close the gap for a second ram attack. Hellenor was also able to downshift, setting her up for some slower maneuvers as she approached the turn. Zoe chose to use her Moment of Glory perk and roll all shifts, making a successful gentle turn and removing some hazard tokens. After getting herself lined up to help out Hellenor, Truckee Cheese continued to hang back and find his moment. Hellenor didn't have enough room for another long template, so medium was used instead, getting her lined up to pass gate 1 and activate her weapons on her next turn. I forgot to get the picks, but Spookies and Scream was able to stay on Hellenor but couldn't catch her. Zoe lined herself up for gate 1, followed by Truckee Cheese. Grabbing the gentle turn template, Hellenor crossed gate 1, activated her weapons, and using her time extended perk, wiped away all her hazard tokens, setting herself up for gate 2. Spookies and Scream did their best to close the gap, but the best they could manage was shooting the minigun, which brought down Hellenor's hull points, but not by too much. Zoe pulled off another smooth, gentle turn and headed towards gate 1 and weapon activation. Truckee Cheese was done waiting and decided to use the benefits of a ram and head towards Zoe. Hellenor mashed the gas and with the medium template, gunned away from that damn clown. Spookies and Scream wasn't about to give up and kept straight at her, not able to ram, but able to get another hull point knocked off in a hail of bullets. Zoe decided it was time to get into the fight, and she aimed her own heavy machine gun at Spookies and Scream, taking off a few of his hull points as payback, while Truckee Cheese crossed gate 1 and activated his weapons. Hellenor used a gentle turn and pointed herself towards gate 2 by rolling skid dice and using her spin result to turn the car towards it. Spookies and Scream liked the idea so much they did the same and stayed almost parallel with Hellenor as they side slid towards gate 2. God, that was a mouthful, but I'm leaving it. Zoe and Truckee Cheese closed the gap and lined themselves up for some nice shots. Zoe took another hull point from Spookies and Scream, while Truckee Cheese knocked 2 off from Zoe. Hellenor is known for her speed, but she tried a tricky move with a gentle turn and a spin result that kept her off the obstacle and lined her up for a path to both gate 2 and the finish line. Too tempting a target, Spookies and Scream charged at Hellenor, finger on the trigger, bringing Hellenor dangerously close to the end of her race. Zoe was now stuck between attacking Spookies and Scream while avoiding Truckee Cheese, and definitely had her hands full, but was able to take another hull point off the ice cream truck. Will it be enough? Making good use of the front-mounted ram, Truckee Cheese heavily damaged the back end of Zoe, jeopardizing her chances for a win, let alone helping her teammate. Using her best Lightning McQueen move, Hellenor slid around the end of the teardrop turn and was almost to gate 2. But it wasn't enough, and with a medium template, Spookies and Scream slammed into the back of the Hellenor. If that didn't end her race, a blast from the minigun sure would. With Hellenor out of the race, Zoe tried to evade the wreckage and angle herself for a straight shot across the finish line. But ain't nothing in this life simple, and Truckee Cheese had something to say about it, specifically with the ram. Spookies and Scream didn't think far enough ahead, and while Hellenor is out of the way, the obstacle wasn't. Trying to hairpin, they were able to avoid taking damage from the obstacle, but couldn't avoid the heavy machine gun fire from Zoe. With a distorted warble, the annoying, incessant jingle dies out, as does Spooky and Scream's chances of winning. Seeing the destruction of his teammate, Truckee Cheese takes another hull point off of Zoe, weakening both her vehicle and her chances. Zoe manages to avoid the obstacle, but can she avoid the wreckage of the ice cream truck? Truckee Cheese was unable to make the turn and had to go wide, giving Zoe a break from both the ram and gunfire attack. Zoe managed to avoid both the wreckage and line up with gate 2. One more gentle template and she would be set up for a win with 2 long straight moves. But Truckee Cheese wasn't done yet and managed to avoid the wall and line up with Zoe. Taking the shot, Truckee Cheese was able to take the last hull point away from Zoe and wrecked her into second place. With no other threats, Truckee Cheese was able to drive through Gate 2 and across the finish line with hull points to spare. And just like that, my son won again with his team of misfits. Spookies and Scream in the ice cream truck, and Truckee Cheese, the winner, putting him in the lead for the championship, followed by Team Grindhouse in second and our friend's team in third place as she was not able to race that day. We each got 10 cans to spend on our teams, and you bet your ass we upgraded. Zoe and Hellenor both added NOS since the cost is half for Idra's sponsors, but Hellenor also added some armor plates as she's planning on being the one in front as often as possible. Her next planned upgrade will most likely be dropped weapons, since the front-mounted weapon can't shoot at second place. So, Team Grindhouse lost the race, but I had a blast and I hope you did too. Ring that bell to stay connected and don't miss the next episode. If you liked today's episode, you can show your appreciation by hitting the like button and sharing this video on your favorite social media platform. Or you can do both. You know, it's free and stuff. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky Social, and Patreon, where I post my WIP projects, that's work in progress to the non-initiated, and other behind-the-scenes goodies. That's all for this time. As you try to avoid the day's headlines, don't forget, they ain't gonna paint themselves.